What's up, YouTube? Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue with the guitar kit build. Now, I had mentioned in the last video that I might be working on fixing up the guitar plates, the cavity plates in this video, because, as we discussed in the original intro and unboxing video that we did, the plates that they sent me to go into this cavity and cover those up simply don't fit. So yeah, they're crappy beige plastic. They appear to have the countersinking for the screws done on the wrong side of them, and they don't bloody fit, which doesn't do me any good. So plan A was to just scrape down the edges or sand them a little bit because they were slightly too big, and I figured that would help to make them fit. But we're going to go with plan B instead, which is that I'm just going to make custom ones. So I'm not going to do that in this video because I'm not quite ready for it yet. I've just literally scanned the back of that guitar, and I'm going to create my vector files and cut them that way. So we're not really ready for that stage, and I figured at this point, before I move on to too much of the repair work and finish sanding and stuff, I'd like to get this thing all as one piece. So I've already got my hole drilled from chamber to chamber here, so I don't need to access that anymore. And I've got the hole coming in from this switch over here. So really, there's no significant reason that I can think of why I can't put the neck in at this point and have that ready to go for when I start doing all my finishing. It's a good idea, if you can, to finish sand this area, which I've already basically done, and right around the heel of the neck, where it's going to be basically touching the body beforehand. And that way it's easier to access. So before I can really get these glued together, I've already checked the joint. We did this in the original video. Sorry, I know you can't really see what I'm doing right now. But we pressed them together and just double checked that the joint was relatively tight, which it is, and there aren't really any issues with them. However, that being said, wood glue is best used against two smooth surfaces. And to be honest, the back of this and that pocket aren't very smooth. So what I'm going to do now is take a razor blade, because I want to make sure I'm keeping everything flat, and I'm just going to lightly scrape along and pull off kind of the crap that's making it not so smooth. So I'm going to bring the camera in, and you guys can have a look at me doing that. Alright, so the razor blade's a great option for this. It's nice and flat. Use a new one. They're cheap. And just go in, start at the edge, and pull them relatively upright outward. And you'll be able to feel things getting smoother as you do that. Flip it around occasionally so that you get the other side, because the burr on the bottom, you'll create a burr that'll kind of curl over, and then you want to flip it the other way, and you want to be scraping using that burr to a degree. So flip your blade around now and then, and don't be afraid to change blades now and then. As I said, they're fairly inexpensive. So the body cavity is pretty smooth now. We're going to do the neck next. You can do this by pulling toward you or by pushing away. It doesn't really matter. I'm pushing away in this instance because it's easier, but I can also pull toward me as long as I make sure I'm hitting the whole area. Keeping the blade more vertical will be a slightly more aggressive scraping. If you try and do it this way, with the blade pointing toward the direction you're going, you could possibly end up gouging into the wood. So be very careful if you're doing something like that, but I recommend just holding it vertical or a little bit angled away from the direction you're pulling it, like pulling that way, and that will allow you to take off just a little bit. Just this fine dust here. Alright, so we're at the glue up stage now. I've already cleaned this up with my razor blade and done the same with the cavity and made sure that they're both nice and flat and that they fit together. Make sure when you're doing this that you check thoroughly, make sure everything fits together nice and snug, make sure there aren't any gaps in there that you need to worry about. You want everything to be pretty tight before you apply the glue, because if there are gaps in there, it's not going to be a proper strong joint like you want it to be. So I've got my two pieces here that I'm gluing together. I also have a small piece of shop towel here to clean up excess glue so it doesn't stick on there and create a problem for me later on. The glue that I'm using for this one is Titebond 3 because I like it and it was recommended by several people that I think really know what they're doing. So I'm going to trust them and go with this option. And I'm going to try and get a nice even thin coating on both surfaces and on the edges where the two make contact. So that's the plan. I'm just going to spread it around with my finger and use the shop towel to clean off the excess. What you need for this is some clamping pressure, okay? And you got to be kind of careful about it. You don't want to break anything, but at the same time, you want a significant amount of pressure. One of the things I don't necessarily like about this kit is how extremely small this wall is here. So I'm not going to crank it down too hard, but I am going to be putting a fair bit of pressure on it and as evenly as possible using 2 C-clamps, assuming I can get them both to fit in there. These are pretty big C-clamps. So I'm thinking that they're going to give me all the pressure I need. But if you clamp these clamps directly to your guitar body, you're going to make a mess. You're going to leave a dent, okay? So what we're going to do, when I get the glue in there, I'm going to go ahead and put a small piece of wood. I have just some 1/4-inch plywood that I'm going to put on the back here to protect the back of the guitar, and then I'm going to clamp it. I'm not worried about marks on the inside of the pickup cavity there because it's the inside of the pickup cavity. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to go ahead and clamp this from both sides onto this piece of wood, which is why I selected a fairly large piece. And this is going to work out nicely because the back of the guitar is flat. So now that we've established what I'm going to do, let's do it. As I said, I'm going to put a nice thin layer of glue in here. And I'm just going to spread it around. I'm just using my finger. I'll clean it up off my finger after. Make sure you get it into the corners and everything. And up the sides here, because that is also going to be a contact point for the neck. And we want to get even glue coverage on as much surface area as we can to make sure that we're getting a nice strong bond. Alright, so now we've got that covered. Hopefully in a timely manner here we can do the same with this. Don't go too high up on the heel here because some of it sticks out beyond there and that wouldn't be ideal. But get a little on the sides as well. Again, to cover as much surface area as possible to give us that nice strong bond that we're looking for. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I realize I've been a little bit quiet the last little bit. Anyway, I'm going to clean up my fingers now and get this pressed in. Alright, so that's in there nicely. We've got some glue pressing out around the joint, which is a good sign, but again, you're going to want to clean it up so that it doesn't cure in place there. So I'm just using my piece of shop towel to get rid of the excess glue, particularly on the top where it could mess up my finish if I'm not careful. Alright, and now we can start clamping it in. So I'll put my board on the back. I've got my clamps adjusted too far open. You want them open enough so that they make it over the body, of course, but not so open that you have to play around like I'm doing right now if you can avoid it. Alright, so that one's on there nice and tight. And I'm going to find a space to put this one as well. And now the clamps have caused this to press out just a little bit more glue. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. Again, trying to be thorough so that I don't mess up the top. So all in all, that's a very simple procedure and a fairly quick step. But it's good to have that out of the way. That's going to make it kind of nice working with the guitar as a whole from now on. It could be argued that it's easier to work with the parts individually. Personally, I just like the feel of working with the whole thing at once. So you can get all your finish sanding done, or most of it, before you do this. Technically, you could even finish part of it, like put the finish on, before you get around to the gluing stage. It's just something that I enjoy getting done early. Alright guys, we're going to call that a wrap for this one. I'm going to let this glue dry and we'll be back with more next time, so stay tuned. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up so it'll be easier for other people to find, and subscribe to stay up to date with all the cool projects I got coming out. Also, a big shout out to Sovereign King, who does the vast majority of the music for my channel, way better on guitar than I am, and to Troy from Noise Guitar Mods. I'll put the link in the description. The man is a great guitar tech, and he's taught me most of what I know about how the internals of these things work. Thanks for watching guys, hope you enjoyed yourselves. See you next time.